Well, we have a special guest for tonight, Victor Avila. He's a former U.S. Homeland Security Investigations HSI special agent. He's best known for surviving the 211 ambush in Mexico, where his partner ICE Special Agent James Zapata was killed by the Los Zetas cartel. You correct me, Victor, for this information. Now you are Assistant Director of ONDCP. It's the Office of National Drug Control Policy for the viewers from abroad, and we have international audience. So I'm gonna go back in like the trafficking and the border security. You witnessed the cartel brutality firsthand. How has human trafficking evolved since the Zapata ambush in 2011, and what the Trump administration can do about it right now, these days?
It's great to be with you. Thank you for having me. There's been an evolution of the cartels. They are not the same organizations that maybe a lot of people think that they are. These are not small gangs. These are not, it's not even, it's more than just an organized criminals. They have really expanded into these corporations worldwide that a lot of them, when we talk about the Mexican cartels, obviously they're based in Mexico, but they're present not only in the US, but in 65 countries around the world. And they used to be the drug trafficking organization. We used to call them DTOs because their main source of illicit funds was illegal drug trafficking. But that's not the case anymore. They realized years ago, in the last decade or so, that the human beings pay a lot more money. And we're talking about both the human smuggling of individuals into the country illegally, or the exploitation of that individual, which is now human trafficking, either for sexual exploitation or forced labor, which they started making billions and billions of dollars. And then now these cartels, because they have been designated as foreign terrorist organizations because of President Trump, they have been involved, they are involved in many other things like the lime trade, the avocado trade, the steel trade, and many other things in Mexico, the stealing of petroleum and diesel fuel, both from Texas and from Mexico. So these organizations, as you can tell, are involved in a lot of illicit activities.
Can we know details about how these cartels use fake families, fake identity, fake documents, and recycled minors as well for trafficking operations? Can you give us some operations during this during the second Trump administration? What was the main operation that you did in this sector?
My goodness, I did many operations. A lot of rescue missions of children, women and children that were held in captivity, that were being exploited in the U.S., that were being brought from cartels into the United States for the purpose of exploitation. And there are some horrific instances what I saw of how these individuals treat a human being, especially a child. It is pure evil. Sometimes I know it's hard for people to believe that that exists in our world, but unfortunately it does. And part of my job was to bring those individuals to justice, these traffickers, and to rescue the children and women that were under their control. In the middle of all that, there was a lot of other crimes that were being committed, murder, and a lot of what you mentioned, and I'm glad you mentioned, is a lot of fraudulent documents, fraudulent marriages, fake social security cards, fake driver's license, and the theft of identity of a lot of Americans. So all of that has led to a lot of problems and criminal activity in the U.S.
Can you explain what is the connection between the trafficking routes and the fentanyl crisis in the U.S.? What is the role of China here? We need to know more.
Well, just recently, and this is because of President Trump, I'll give you exactly what's going on right now. We have added, ONDCP, the agency where I work at, has added 13 chemical precursors that have been banned now from leaving China. And these precursors and these chemicals are the ones that the cartels are using in hundreds of labs throughout Mexico, where they're making the fentanyl in fake pills. They look like regular prescription pills like Xanax, Adderall, Percocet, many others, and they're in the black market. And according to DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, 6 out of 10 pills in the market are laced with deadly fentanyl. And
Mhm.
so China obviously has a major role, but so does Mexico, because Mexico
Mhm.
is not stopping these precursor chemicals from coming into their ports and making their way through Mexico to get to the hands of the cartels. By the way, they're also making methamphetamine, which is a big problem in the United States. You never hear about the meth problem, but that is a huge issue in a lot of communities in the U.S. because these people that are addicted to meth are using a lot of meth, and they're creating a lot of crimes, especially committing a lot of crimes, especially property crimes. So the fentanyl has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans from all age groups, children, middle age, old age, rich, poor, Republican, Democrat. The pills don't care what you come from and what you think of. The pill equals death. And so we at ONDCP also want to work not only on the supply side of the drugs, but on the demand side to educate our children young in school and telling them the dangers of using one of these fake pills. And then now on top of it, right now as we speak, Maria,
Yeah.
we have cocaine being the number one problem because they're lacing cocaine with fentanyl. So you have recreational cocaine users that are also dying now. They're lacing marijuana, they're lacing a lot of other drugs, and they're making these synthetic drugs that are very deadly,
Mhm.
way more than heroin, and very addictive as well.
I have a question. Can we talk about numbers, how it declines, about deaths, American deaths because of the drugs, this kind of addiction, and the trafficking of this fentanyl and many kind of drugs between the Biden administration and now? Can we do a small comparison? A
I
short
could
comparison?
tell you, so I could tell you in the last 5 years under the Biden administration, we had the most record number of deaths in the U.S., averaging over 100,000 deaths. Think about that. We're
Mm-hmm.
over 500,000 deaths. That's more than all the wars combined in the United States. But for some reason, because people were dying with a pill and it wasn't a bullet and it wasn't a bomb, there really nobody was really paying attention. But now President Trump is,
Mm-hmm.
and the numbers are coming down.
Mm-hmm.
This year, we're expecting to it be in the upper 78, 79,000 a thousand people range, which is still a lot. That's still a
Mm-hmm.
lot of deaths, but is a significant drop because of a lot of things in combination. I could tell you it's the use of Narcan.
Mm-hmm.
It's the border that's being secured. It's the law enforcement efforts in the that you're seeing out in the ocean and international waters. So it's a combination of a lot of things, both education and enforcement at the same time.
Mhm. Amazing. You testified before Congress. What is the one thing lawmakers still don't understand about the trafficking? And what do you advise new agents, what they need, still need, what they don't know? I mean, like there is a question about how today they can get experience from you during, يعني you're expert during your work with ICE and HSI. What you can tell them?
Well, I could tell you that for some reason, and this is a partisan statement, but for some reason, the Democrats do not want to be on the side of the right side of the law. They seem to defend the bad guys. They seem to be on the side of the cartel, on the side of the illegal alien. And the side that I want to be on is the one of public safety, of the one that your community is safe. It really doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter who's in the White House. Everybody wants public safety. I don't want anybody to be a victim of the crime. And
Mhm.
I am a big advocate for victims because they're the real story as to why we have this problem. When you meet a parent that lost their child
Mhm.
because they took a pill and died that they weren't expecting, you get a very, very different perspective. And unfortunately, I've met many of those angel moms and angel dads. And
Mhm.
so that's what it's kind of hard to make people understand the epidemic problem that we have because most of them don't really want to accept it until it comes to their front doorstep when someone that they know, whether a friend or a family member, dies of one of these overdoses, all of a sudden they really care. Well, at that point, it's really too late. I
Mm,
want them to be aware now
mm.
before, and we're working very closely with Congress because a lot of times we have to pass legislation to help prevent some of these things from happening.
Yeah, yeah. In your opinion, how does the trafficking situation differ between Mexico, Central America, and the Middle East? Do you get reports from Middle East cartels or mafia gangs in this job?
So we do get a lot of statistics and a lot of intel from around the world. Unfortunately, a lot of these other countries do not report those numbers, and if they do report them, it's very difficult to take them at face value, or we just take them at face value because we don't have the ability to vet those numbers. But
What
they're
about,
they're
I want to be precise by my question. What about the Iranian proxies like Hezbollah and his involvement in trafficking and all of this? Hezbollah, all this militia proxy Iran.
big connection, especially Hezbollah in Venezuela. We know that they've been involved with them. They're involved in Mexico with the cartels. Why? Because they know that the cartels produce billions of dollars with their illicit, what we talked about, their activities. So Hezbollah is able to tap in there and make money for their terrorist organizations and their activities. They need money to fund them and to finance their activities. And so they join these drug cartels to be able to do that. And a lot of times they infiltrate these groups to get into the US as illegal aliens, maybe with no criminal history, but then they're in the US as either soft cells or individual cells that now cause a national security issue. So that's the big picture, right? Once we look at everything, what we're really talking about here is a national security issue. The drugs, the cartels, they're a means
Mm.
to a way to a final agenda that China has, that Venezuela has. Look at Venezuela. They sent all of these Venezuelans, a lot of them from their prisons, Tren de Aragua gang members, and many others into the U.S. And now they're here and they're wreaking havoc. There's a lot of issues with public safety and crime due to these people that are in the country illegally.
And
So it's all comes together, and the
connect.
big picture is to protect the homeland.
Yeah, it's all connected, and it's a great source for funding terrorism. What you can say about a country like Iraq? Now we have Mark Savai as a special envoy of President Trump to Iraq. These militias in Iraq, they won the election, and they are also smuggling. I don't know what they are smuggling, but they are involved in such a crime. What you can talk about Iraq as a country, government, and militia?
I could tell you that we haven't heard a lot of activity coming directly from there, but when it comes to the Middle East, they are not free of all these substances either. As a matter of fact, the cartels, because of the enforcement in the US and Canada, they're moving their drugs to Europe and Middle East. And so a lot of these countries that were not used to being what we consider countries of use, and maybe just transit drugs. Now they're trying to get those citizens and that population hooked on these drugs so they can start trafficking them in there. But that's why we have to have a kind of
Mm,
world approach here
mm,
to combat it all together. And it becomes we've had talks with people like for example in Brussels and other parts of the world because we understand that this is a worldwide issue.
Yeah, amazing. Finally, how do you assess the work between the Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Neom, Tom Homan, and your department? Can you tell us how the mechanism work?
Yes, so the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, oversees all the agencies under DHS, which is, Border Patrol,
Mhm.
HSI, ICE, the Secret Service, USCIS. There's many, many agencies under DHS. Tom Homan is separate from that because he is the border czar, and the border czar is reporting directly to President Trump and coordinating a lot of the deportation efforts. In my case, Sarah Carter, who is our nominee to be our drug czar, And so Sarah Carter will be the drug czar. And at the same way, we're going to be coordinating with Tom Homan, with Christy Nome, with all the heads of agencies, which we just met this past week in Mar-a-Lago with the head of the DEA, the head of the Secret Service, the head of the ATF, and many, many others that we're going to be collaborating, because one of the big differences, Maria, is now what President Trump has done is to bring everyone together to finally share the information. The intel that we receive, this intelligence and all the information that we get is no good if we're not sharing it, and second, if we're not acting on it.
Yeah, holding people accountable, responsibility is Thank you so much, Victor. I'm so glad to have you. Thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.